How Americans are legally paying 0% tax, the Puerto Rico secret. Let me tell you about a guy named Marcus. He spent 15 years building a trading portfolio. By 2022, he had close to $800,000 in unrealized capital gains. When he finally sold, the federal government took over $200,000 in taxes. It wiped out years of compounded growth in a single transaction. Here is the part that still haunts him. 3 of his friends made the exact same trade that year and paid 0. Not through a loophole, not through a shady offshore account, not through anything illegal. They paid 0 because they had moved to Puerto Rico. Welcome to Fuel Your Wealth. Today we are talking about one of the most powerful and most overlooked legal tax strategies available to individual investors, and why more and more high earners are quietly using it. Puerto Rico is a United States territory. American citizens can move there freely, no visa required. And in 2019, Puerto Rico consolidated its tax incentive programs into something called Act 60. Under Act 60, qualifying residents of Puerto Rico can pay 0 federal tax on capital gains, dividends, and interest income. 0. Not 2%, not 10%. 0. To understand why this is possible, you have to understand a quirk of U.S. tax law. If you are a bona fide resident of Puerto Rico, the income you earn from Puerto Rican sources is generally not subject to U.S. federal income tax. Puerto Rico has its own tax system, and for decades it has used that autonomy to attract wealthy individuals with extraordinarily low rates. The Individual Investors Act under Act 60, sometimes called Chapter 2 or the old Act 22, is the one that gets the headlines. Under this component, a qualifying Puerto Rico resident can pay 0% in taxes on capital gains, dividends, and interest income that was generated after they became a resident. If you have a stock portfolio, a crypto portfolio, or any investment account generating income, that income could potentially be taxed at 0% under this structure. Think about what that actually means for a crypto investor. Say you bought Bitcoin or Ethereum years ago and it has grown significantly. If you sell from a high-tax state, you could owe 20% or more in federal long-term capital gains plus state taxes. In California, that stacks to over 30%. For $1 million gain, that is $300,000 gone. A qualifying Puerto Rico resident selling the same position after establishing residency there could potentially pay 0. The same logic applies to stock portfolios, dividend income, interest income, and any other passive investment gains. For someone actively building wealth through investing, this is potentially one of the most impactful strategies available under current law. Now let me be very clear about the requirements, because this is not a magic trick. You need to become a bona fide resident of Puerto Rico. That means spending at least 183 days per year on the island. It also means making Puerto Rico your primary home. Your closest connections, your social ties, your community should be centered there. The IRS uses a 3-part test looking at your presence, your tax home, and your closer connections. All 3 need to point to Puerto Rico. You also cannot have been a resident of Puerto Rico any time in the last 10 years before applying. This prevents people from simply moving there to cash out gains they already built, then leaving. The 0 tax benefit on capital gains generally only applies to appreciation that occurs after you establish residency. Any gains that accrued before you moved are still taxable at standard federal rates. There are also costs involved. There is a decree application fee, an annual maintenance fee, and a charitable donation requirement of $10,000 per year to qualified Puerto Rico nonprofits. For someone with a mid-7-figure portfolio generating significant income, these costs are relatively minor compared to the potential tax savings. So who is actually doing this? More people than you think. Crypto investors who bought early and want to let their portfolios grow going forward. Traders who are already working remotely. Retirees living off dividend and interest income. Content creators with investment portfolios. These are the people who have been quietly making this move for years. And Puerto Rico is not a sacrifice. San Juan has world-class food, beaches, and nightlife. The cost of living is meaningfully lower than New York, Miami, or San Francisco. There is a growing community of investors and entrepreneurs already there. For the right person, it can genuinely be a great place to live. If you own a business and want to know how Puerto Rico handles business taxes, that is actually a completely separate and equally powerful strategy. We cover that in the next video. The bottom line is this. A stock investor in California and a qualifying Puerto Rico resident can make the exact same trade. One walks away with everything. One hands over 30% to the government. That difference is written into the law, and some people are choosing to take advantage of it legally. If this is something you are considering, the first step is to talk to a tax attorney who specializes in Puerto Rico Act 60. This is not a do-it-yourself situation. The IRS watches these filings closely, and the consequences of doing it wrong are severe. But for the right person, done correctly, this is potentially one of the most impactful legal financial strategies available today. Everything in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor or tax professional, and nothing here should be considered tax advice or financial advice. Always consult a qualified tax attorney and financial advisor before making any decisions about your residency, taxes, or financial strategy. Always do your own research. A qualifying resident of Puerto Rico doing the exact same work could potentially pay a fraction of that, or nothing on investment income. That gap is not an accident. It is written into the law, and some people are choosing to take advantage of it. If this is something you are considering, the first step is to talk to a tax attorney who specializes in Puerto Rico Act 60. This is not a do-it-yourself strategy. The IRS watches these filings closely, and the consequences of doing it wrong are severe. But for the right person, done correctly, this could potentially be one of the most impactful financial decisions of their life. Everything in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor or tax professional, and nothing here should be considered tax advice or financial advice. Always consult a qualified tax attorney and financial advisor before making any decisions about your residency, taxes, or financial strategy. Always do your own research.